Hello and welcome to today's lesson. So in 12-1, we talked about the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, in order to use this, the first thing we have to have is a right triangle. So if we don't have a right triangle, we cannot use this Pythagorean theorem. So in your right triangle, remember that C is always your hypotenuse. It is always the side that is opposite of the right angle. So we have a right angle in here, and C is always that side opposite. Now, A and B can be in either order. So as long as these are both the legs, the two that come together, and then C is always your hypotenuse. Okay, what we're going to look at today is, okay, if we have a squared plus b squared, and we say it does, absolutely positively, it does equal c squared, then what happens by using the converse, that means that now we can say if a squared plus b squared equals c squared is true, then what must follow is that we have a right triangle. So you're going to talk more about converses when you get into geometry and they start talking about if-then statements and hypothesis and conclusion. So right now we know if we have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared must be equal to c squared. The converse is just the opposite. If we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we have a right triangle. Okay, so in all of these, we want to find out, do we have a right triangle or not? Okay, so here, do you see how we have A, B, and C, but we don't know, is this right or is it not right? So then they give us numbers 3, 4, and 5. No matter what, whenever they give you the numbers, the biggest number has to always be your C. So 3 squared plus 4 squared, and we want to know, does that equal 5 squared? So that's 9 plus 16, and does that equal 5 squared, which is 25? So 25 equals 25. So yes, this is a right triangle. Okay, let's try the next one. So we want to know, is 5 squared plus 12 squared, does this equal 13 squared? So we have 25 plus 144, and we want to know, does that equal 169? Well, 169 equals 169, so yes, this is a right triangle. All right, let's try the next one. So they want to know 7 squared plus 24 squared, does this equal 25 squared? So we've got 49 plus, and 24 squared is going to be 576. And does that equal 25 squared, which is 625? So 49 plus 576, 49 plus 576 is 625. So 625 equals 625. So yes, this is a right triangle. Okay, so let's try something like 3, 4, and 6. Okay, so does 3 squared plus 4 squared, does that equal 6 squared? So we have 9 plus 16, and we want to know, does that equal 36? Well, 9 plus 16 is 25. It does not equal 36, so this is not a right triangle. In order for it to be a right triangle, this statement would have to be true. And actually, I'm just going to do a little extension here, and then maybe when you guys are in geometry, you can think of me. So what happened here is c squared is bigger than a squared plus b squared. So actually this isn't right because it would be equal. Because c squared is bigger, this is an obtuse triangle. Okay? All right, let's try another one here. So we've got the numbers 9, 40, and 41. Okay, remember the 41, the biggest number, has to always be the hypotenuse. So does 9 squared plus 40 squared, does that equal 41 squared? So 9 squared is 81, 40 squared is 1600, and 41 squared is 1681. So we want to know, are those equal? Well, that's 1681 and that is 1681. And because it's equal, we have a right triangle. All right, let's try this one. So I always like to find my biggest one because sometimes they put these out of order and they might give you the numbers 12, 8, 10. So we can't just set them up in order. You can't just say 12 squared plus 8 squared, does that equal 10 squared? That does not work. You always have to pick the bigger one, and that is your hypotenuse, or your C value. Okay, here they do have them in order, so we're good. 8 squared plus 10 squared, does that equal 12 squared? So 8 squared is 64, 10 squared is 100, and does that equal 144? Well, here we have 164. That does not equal 144. Not a right triangle. So the only other two options that this could be is this is either an obtuse triangle or it's acute. Obtuse or acute. So this is just an extension that I'm doing with you guys. So in here, what we're trying is that a right triangle? 8, 10, 12. And what we found is no. So does it like this so that we would really have a bigger triangle so that it is obtuse? Or is it really this way so that it is acute? Now, what we always do is we compare C. Is C squared bigger? Well, if we put the symbol in here, isn't 164 bigger than 144? So C squared is smaller, and if C squared is smaller, that means that we have an acute triangle. So this isn't right, it is an acute triangle. All right, let's try another one. All right, we got a couple more here. So 14, 23, 25. Okay, this is my biggest. So 14 squared plus 23 squared. How does that compare to 25 squared? So 14 squared is 196. 23 squared is 529. And how does that compare to 625? Well, 196 plus 529 is 725. Is that equal? So this is not a right triangle because they are not equal. So now let's see if we can take that one step further. And can you tell me if this is an acute triangle or a right triangle? Well, this is C squared. C squared is smaller. So if it's smaller, it is acute. It is acute. I think on the test I might give you some extra credit if you can tell me if your answer is not a right triangle, which is all we're trying to see, and you can actually tell me that C squared is smaller, so it's acute. I think I might give you some extra credit on that, because that's you taking and extending the lesson. All right, let's try this last one. So I like to find my bigger one so that I know that that is C. So 16 squared plus 30 squared, does that equal 34 squared? So 16 squared is 256. 30 squared is 900. How does that compare to 34 squared, which is 1156? So these two, when we add these two together, it's 1156 equals 1156. And remember, if they equal each other, this is a right triangle. All right, that should do it for example problems for you. So remember, we're doing the converse. So we're seeing if the two sides, does a squared plus b squared, does that equal c squared? And if they are equal, our conclusion is it is a right triangle. Now remember, for those of you looking for a little bit of extra credit here, the next level would be, can you tell me if it's not equal? If it's not equal, then you only have two situations. Is a squared plus b squared? So is c squared bigger? If c squared is bigger, then what we have is an obtuse triangle. If we have a squared plus b squared, so that we have c squared is smaller, so c squared is smaller, then we can conclude that we have an acute triangle. All right, good luck on your homework assignment for today. Remember, you only have to really find if it's right or not. Yes, it's right. No, it is not right. And we do that by setting up your Pythagorean theorem. All right, good luck.